How a $7 yard sale painting became a $1 million piece of art. This is not one of those stories where someone buys a cheap piece of art somewhere and later discovers it's a priceless Van Gogh or something. This story involves a deliberate transformation of the ordinary to the extraordinary and has much to do with you. I'm Timothy Paulson, and this is Totalityism, episode number 9. Now, I was just in my art studio right before recording this episode, and I was painting on a work that I've already titled The Dance. And really, the dance is inspired by a quote from Johnny Cash. I just finished a book by Johnny Cash. The book actually isn't by Johnny Cash, but it's based on his faith. The faith of Johnny Cash. And the book is called Walking the Line, 90 Devotionals of Truth and Hope based on the faith of Johnny Cash. Now, devotional number 2. Here's a quote by Johnny Cash. And the title of the chapter is The Sparring Partner Within. Johnny Cash said this: "Sometimes I am two people. Johnny is the nice one. Cash causes all the trouble. They fight." End quote. So the painting, The Dance, is really about internal conflict. It might be proper to say it is being in the world but not of the world. So that painting is going to be forthcoming. I'll probably do a podcast episode on it, so more to come. This again is the Totalityism podcast. This is where I merge art and theology in a way as a catalyst to help you become all God created you to be. In speaking about the dance, there was a dance going on with a $7 yard sale painting. There's a $7 yard sale painting I'm going to tell you about that transformed to a $1 million piece of art. And that applies to you because too often we put ourselves in a category of less value, when in reality our value is immense. It is infinite. The painting I'm going to tell you about serves as a metaphor that I believe can absolutely change your life. Over a decade ago, I stopped at a yard sale in a sleepy neighborhood in Lehi, Utah, because as I drove by, I saw a painting leaning against a couch in the driveway. Now, my dad has been a full-time professional artist since I was a little boy, and I was raised with a paintbrush in my hand. I'm a second-generation artist. I've always loved and appreciated art. But I didn't really want the yard sale painting. It was a 36-inch by 48-inch black and white landscape. But I handed over $7 to buy it because I felt sorry for the thing. It was so dusty and neglected. Now, the painting didn't fare much better when I got it to my home because I went ahead and put it into a storage room in my basement, entirely forgetting about it. About 3 years later, I came across it in that storage room, and I got an idea. I took it to my studio. I transformed it into an abstract work I called Rise from the Dust. Now, I know that not everyone likes abstract art. It may not be your thing. I personally love it. But stay with me on this podcast because the painting serves as a metaphor that is a powerful life changer. After finishing the painting transformation, I hung it on the wall in a large room in my art studio along with several other pieces of art. Now, my art is not inexpensive. It starts at about $25,000. But I felt compelled to do something different with Rise from the Dust. I didn't leave the new painting with all the other paintings for long. I instead took Rise from the Dust and hung it in its own private room in my gallery. I put a crowd control rope in front of it to give a museum-like feel to the room and to the painting. I put a viewing seat in the room, reminiscent of a prestigious art gallery or museum. I had lighting and a security camera in the room to add to the feel of a museum. It was after the painting was in this museum-like setting that I just described that I priced it at $1 million. Now, where did the $1 million price come from? If you were to walk into my studio, my gallery, where all of my $25,000 of $35,000, $40,000 paintings are, and you saw Rise from the Dust hanging on the wall beside them, it would be safe to assume it too was a $25,000 to $40,000 painting, right? However, once you enter into the private museum-like setting to see Rise from the Dust there all by itself, that impression changes. Something different happens. And it's when you hear the price of $1 million that things change most. When people visit my studio, their eyes get big and they get all giddy. They say things like, wow, look at that $1 million painting, so cool. $1 million? That's epic. Whether it's a day, a month, a year, or more after a person visits my gallery, Rise from the Dust, the $1 million painting, is the one they talk most about when I speak to them again. My famous artist dad, Buck Paulson, has introduced me to others as my son, the artist who painted a $1 million painting. In the MoMA, in the Tate Modern, someday this painting will be purchased by an art collector, and it will be honored and greatly valued. Perhaps it will be shown in a museum like the MoMA in New York City or in the Tate Modern in London. Since it's a $1 million painting, it will fit right in. Now, I've said in previous podcast episodes, I'm a bit of an art whisperer. I discover things when I paint pictures. It's one of the most enjoyable things about painting for me. Ideas and principles come to my mind as I paint. For example, the painting I was telling you about earlier that I've titled The Dance, I'm probably 10% of the way into the painting, but as I was painting, that came to me. In the impression of, turn this into a painting that has to do with Johnny Cash and his walking the line. So again, more on that coming. I've been a business and personal development speaker for 27 years, so I'm very focused on principles I can share to help people go to the next level of success in life. And now I merge my art and theology to create Totalityism. That's the name of the new art movement of the 21st century that I developed. Totalityism is about helping you become all God created you to be. Now, from the experience of transforming a $7 yard sale painting into a $1 million painting, I discovered and named the powerful principle I referred to as the private museum principle. Now, this is featured in chapter 1 of my book titled Totality X, the art of becoming all God created you to be. The principle is not only about how the environment a piece of art is in affects its value. It's about how the environment you find yourself in mentally and physically affects the way you feel about yourself and others as well. So now this is how this principle applies to your life. Did you notice I didn't wait for someone else to come along and proclaim Rise from the Dust, a $1 million painting? I did that myself. It was natural for me to do so after I put it in the museum-like state, in its own room, honored, revered, and respected. You can mentally do the same thing with yourself, with your marriage, with your family, with your work, with your business, with your health, and so forth. For example, a question for you. If you were to honor and revere your marriage and your relationships as priceless, how will you act? A few more questions. How will you treat others whom you look to as priceless individuals? If you were to treat your business, your career, and your clients as if they were invaluable, what will you do differently than you do now? If you were to treat yourself as if you are a remarkable piece of art, what would you change about how you take care of yourself? What would you eat and drink? How often would you exercise? How much sleep would you get? What would you fill your mind with? How would you deal with addiction? The private museum principle, it really has broad application. It does apply to you and to me. You'll avoid failure while enjoying greater success in the most important aspects of life by personally applying it. Now, there's a lot of examples in the world of this principle and the application of it. For example, Steve Jobs, and I didn't call it the private museum principle, but think about his Apple stores. Steve Jobs, first of all, his famous quote, "I want to put a ding in the universe." Well, how did he do that? He didn't want Apple products in an environment sitting side by side with other brands in regular computer stores. He created his own stores with a beautiful environment where Apple products are elegantly displayed and set apart from the competition. If you've ever been to an Apple store, you know what I mean. Another example, Albert Einstein, he said, try not to become a man of success, but rather try to become a man of value. And I add, try not to become a woman of success, but one of great value. It reminds me of the 1927 Solvay conference that I heard the author Seth Godin talk about. Einstein and 28 other scientists, including those you've heard of, Marie Curie and Niels Bohr, they attended an international conference on electrons and photons. Interestingly, there was only a handful from this group who had received the Nobel Prize before this conference. But 17 of the 29 ultimately did receive the Nobel Prize. I love what Seth Godin said about this. Quote, you didn't get invited to the Solvay conference because you won the Nobel Prize. You won the Nobel Prize because you got invited. You need to be in the room where it happens, and then you get to decide what to do about it, end quote. Now, I see this as an example of the private museum principle. People came. They believed they belonged there. They became the environment they were in, and Nobel Prizes followed. Here's what I want to emphasize. You, listening to this podcast, you belong in the company of the great ones. Mentally welcome yourself in the presence of greatness, not out of ego, but out of high self-worth. You belong by deciding to belong. My friend Benjamin Hardy wrote a book, Willpower Doesn't Work. Ben suggests in the book that instead of white-knuckling your way to change, you need to instead alter your surroundings to support your goals. The private museum principle was discovered by putting my painting into a better physical environment. When I did that, I had no idea that I'd be writing about it and talking about it, creating a principle out of it. Now, the metaphor I'm advancing is you can do the same thing by mentally putting yourself and others into an honored state, which can positively affect behavior and results. I said earlier that this painting serves as a metaphor that can change your life. Imagine for a moment how you'd care for $1 million painting you might own. I don't think you would neglect it, would you? And you wouldn't treat it poorly. You wouldn't leave it out in the rain and the elements. You'd honor it. You'd be proud of it, and you'd provide impeccable care for it, wouldn't you? So this applies to you. Value yourself more. Value your relationships to a greater degree. Value your health on a higher scale. Value your business or career more. Picture and welcome yourself side by side with the great ones and realize you belong right there with them. Rise from the dust is literally what this painting did. It came out of nowhere, from the dust, to become a highly valued piece of art. From chapter 1 of my book, Totalityism, The Art of Becoming All God Created You to Be, I wrote, how is Christ revealed in Rise from the Dust? It's clear, isn't it? Christ rose on the third day, resurrected. You can be raised from the dust. God can raise you up, do great things, and transform your life regardless of your past. I add, you are a child of God. This puts you into what I call the private museum of eternal greatness. Respect yourself. Love yourself. Honor yourself. Move to your full potential. Treat yourself right. Christ can raise you from the dust. He can heal you emotionally, spiritually, physically, and in any other way. He can and will make you better than you are. With Him, there are no limits. He'll transform you in a way infinitely beyond my transformation of the $7 yard sale painting into a $1 million painting. You have eternal worth. Your value will continue to grow for eternity when in the presence of God. And then I add this thought. In a solar eclipse, it gets the darkest right before totality. Then when totality happens, the beautiful corona appears. Christ can be revealed in various ways in your life to raise you up. Now go ahead and invite Him in. So there you go, how a $7 yard sale painting became a $1 million piece of art. Now I created something. It's called a cheat sheet, the Private Museum Principle Cheat Sheet. I believe your life will change for the better very quickly by implementing this principle. I'll send you the cheat sheet. Just email me at timothypaulson1@gmail.com. Ask for the cheat sheet, and I'll send it right out to you. You can also see this piece of art, the $1 million piece of art, in my online gallery at paulsonartshow.com. As you scroll down a little bit, you'll see it featured there prominently, separate from all the other paintings. That sounds familiar, doesn't it? And it stands out as the $1 million painting. You too can stand out. Allow the painting to serve as a metaphor, how you can change your life. I'm glad you listened. I invite you to share this podcast with others, subscribe, and until next time, have a tremendous day.